It can be tough to make out every difference between the original and the remake of Resident Evil 3, especially if you haven't played the PS1 classic. Worry not, for we found more differences between the two, along with how the game ties into Resident Evil 2. So let's take a look. How Marvin got infected. Among the many ways that Resident Evil 3 Remake connects to Resident Evil 2 Remake is showcasing how Marvin Branagh, the officer who meets Leon or Claire in the beginning of last year's title, gets infected. As it turns out, it's because of Brad Vickers, who was turned into a zombie. Marvin was busy subduing Vickers, with the latter seemingly saying the word sorry and catching him off guard. Vickers would bite and infect Marvin, causing him to eventually turn in Resident Evil 2 Remake when Leon came around. The death of Brad. This one's a little complicated. In the original game, Brad is clearly bitten by a zombie when Jill Valentine meets him. However, he subsequently ran off and encountered the Nemesis who impaled him in the head, and would later become a zombie. In the remake, however, Vickers is seen retreating with Jill, holding the door and getting bitten by a zombie. He buys time for Jill to run and is later seen as a zombie, leaving little doubt as to what happened. The death of Zombie Brad. Remember how Zombie Brad Vickers was missing from Resident Evil 2 Remake, albeit appearing on a post despite being present in the original game? We kind of understand why now. It's because in the Resident Evil 3 Remake, Carlos kills him. This is after he's bitten Marvin, and unlike his classic RE2 iteration, Brad goes down pretty quickly. Meeting Nemesis, Carlos, and UBCS. On the subject of plot changes, Jill's fateful encounter with the Nemesis happens right at the beginning of the remake. The tyrant attacks at her apartment and subsequently pursues her. Soon, she runs into it again, and, after unsuccessfully trying to fight it, is helped by Carlos before regrouping and meeting the UBCS. In the original, however, Jill first encounters Nemesis when he kills Brad. The first meeting with Carlos only happens when Jill reaches the restaurant, before Nemesis barges in, that is. New sewer area. It's already known by now, but a lot of the stuff from the original didn't carry over into the remake. However, weirdly enough, there are some brand new areas. The sewers are new, and will be familiar to anyone who's played Resident Evil 2 Remake. One key difference is that you'll be facing off against the new Hunter Gamma, which looks significantly more frightening than in the original. No clock tower area. Speaking of cut content, the clock tower is also gone. Navigating through the structure, solving puzzles, and killing giant spiders while dealing with Nemesis was a core premise in the original game. But in the remake, the clock tower is just a backdrop for a boss battle against Nemesis' second form. At least it looks good and plays a part in that battle. Carlos in RPD. A very interesting change in the remake is how Jill doesn't go to Raccoon City Police Department. Instead, it's Carlos who explores the location before the events of Resident Evil 2 Remake go down, even commenting on Leon's welcoming party. Hilariously enough, we also learn how the bathroom in the RPD suffered such serious damage in last year's remake. It was all Carlos's doing here. Only one canon ending, and no Barry. The original game had multiple endings, but Resident Evil 3 Remake only has one. It's the most curious one as well. Instead of Nikolai being caught off guard by Nemesis, or escaping with a helicopter, or having his helicopter destroyed during the escape, there's only one canon ending. In this, after the fight with Nemesis, Jill and Carlos take Nikolai down and leave him for dead, evacuating via helicopter. Barry Burton, Jill's partner from the first game, doesn't make an appearance at all. Nemesis' different forms. Nemesis' second form has undergone some major changes in the remake, going from a shirtless version with tentacles emanating from its arm to a four-legged beast. That beast is much larger than its normal form, and is capable of such feats as climbing the clock tower and leaping off to attack Jill. Of course, if we're talking about size differences, its final form in the remake is simply gargantuan compared to the original. Lickers. Lickers who debuted in Resident Evil 2 weren't seen in the original Resident Evil 3. That was obviously retconned in the remake, but it goes a step further. During Carlos's RPD section, we actually get to see how the Lickers killed the different officers in the station. It's a small detail, but one that really encapsulates just how everything went so horribly wrong. Nest 2. In the original game, the player visited the Dead Factory, aka Incineration Disposal Plant P12A, which served as a disposal facility for the experiments performed by the Nest lab. In the remake, we have Nest 2, which consists of the factory and the lab. Furthermore, there are now Paleheads, specially mutated zombies with regenerative capabilities, to fight off in the lab. Final encounter with Nemesis. If there's one thing that Resident Evil 3 Remake got right, it's the final encounter with Nemesis in Nest 2. You're still inserting chargers to power up the experimental railgun like before, but there's a proper boss battle with Nemesis' grotesque final form. You dodge tentacles, fire at its weak spots to stun it, inserting the chargers, and ultimately kill it in sensational fashion. Tyrell's death. Tyrell Patrick, a member of the UBCS, has also seen some changes in his overall involvement, being better realized and actually having some character. His death also plays out quite differently. In the original, he was attacked by Nikolai in the Raccoon City Hospital and would subsequently pull the pin on a grenade to kill them both. Nikolai survived this by jumping out of the window and somehow surviving the fall from 4 stories. In the remake, Tyrell dies while trying to help Jill in Nest 2, due to Nemesis' second form killing him with its tentacles. Expanded Hospital. In the original, the hospital, where Tyrell meets his demise, isn't too big. It's possible to explore the entire area in roughly 30 minutes or so. But in the remake, along with changing the story beats, it's a much larger area in general, taking a good hour or so to clear. Robert Kendo. Last seen in Resident Evil 2 Remake, besides being playable in Ghost Survivors, Robert Kendo makes an appearance in Resident Evil 3 Remake as well. This is something missing from the original as he encounters Jill Valentine, who offers to help him evacuate. Due to the condition of his daughter Emma, Kendo refuses. This segues directly into Resident Evil 2 Remake, where Kendo runs into Leon and Ada before, well, bad stuff happens. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from Gaming Bolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.